Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, in our yesterday's class, we learned about how to create a React application. So, we learned about creating React application. So, using NPX, this is what we call as what? Webpack. So, this Webpack is a bundler. So we used the command npx create React app. That is the command, and app name. And initially this is enough for template. Later we can add a template. This template can use TypeScript. That means you can create a React application by using TypeScript or JavaScript. If you don't mention this template TypeScript, by default, it is created for JavaScript. We can build React application using TypeScript, or we can use by using JavaScript. By default, it will be what? JavaScript. So once you created the app, yesterday I showed you how to run. What is it? npm start. So what is npm start? It is a batch program used to compile and run the application, right? So better I will keep it as a question. So what is npm start? So npm start. So it is a batch program. It is a batch program to compile and run React application. So it is a batch program to compile and run application. So what is a batch program? What is a batch program? So a batch program comprises of series of commands. Series of commands defined under specified name, so that you can execute the commands in a sequential order by running the command name. By running the command name. And where we put this batch programs. So where to add batch command? Where to add batch command? So batch commands are added in package JSON. In package.json. In the package JSON scripts. In package JSON scripts, we do that. So we have a scripts option in package JSON where we define as a command name. This is the shorthand. And your command. You need to define your the shorthand and the commands you need to configure. So that is how we run the batch programs. So this is a React template. That means we are creating an application of React where everything is automatically generated for you. Yesterday we saw manually how we can add a component by ourselves and we can use that component. By default, how application starts, the flow I explained. Whenever you run npm start, it starts a local server on port number 3000 and by default index.html will come in the startup. That index.html gets the logic from index.js and index.js is using React 18 create root method to create a virtual DOM and it will render a component into the virtual DOM. That component is default app. We changed it to some other component. Yesterday, what we done? So we created a login component and as per the rules tradition, as I told you, component contains three files. The JSX file, the CSS file and the test file. These test files we don't use now, later we will use. Initially CSS and JS. Even directly this JSX is enough. If you don't want any separate styles, you want to use from Bootstrap and all, you can directly configure from Bootstrap. So it depends. But traditionally, every application have component with three basic files, the styles and the logic and the testing. So once we know how to create a component and add the component, today we will see one more point is how we can how we can add Bootstrap to the project. Because Bootstrap is one regular styling concept we will use in building React. Later, we will learn more advanced than Bootstrap. React have its own library. We will learn about the library called MUI. So, but before that, to practice lot of examples with good styles, we will use Bootstrap. So, previously different and now little different. In our previous project, what we done, we installed Bootstrap and we linked that to HTML page. But now here we don't do that. Set up Bootstrap for React application. React application. How you set up Bootstrap for React application is first is install Bootstrap and icons using npm package manager. And we know that in the terminal, we have to run the command npm install bootstrap and bootstrap icons and save. First, we need to set up bootstrap and bootstrap icons. Bootstrap and bootstrap icons we need to set up. So once you do this, you know what are the files required for using Bootstrap in a project. To use Bootstrap in a project, we need three files. One icon CSS file, another one is Bootstrap CSS file, another one is Bootstrap scripts we need. But here how we do is actually first we will install Bootstrap. Currently, first I will run here npm start. Actually, here Bootstrap is not still working in this. So it is starting the scripts and executing the project. And in another terminal, so this we will keep running in one terminal. In one terminal, this project is running. In another terminal, we will install all that. Okay, it is starting. Let it start. So in another terminal, you can add one more terminal here. So you click a plus, one more terminal will come. Here we will install npm because in one terminal already project is running. If you stop, then you cannot run the project. Again, you have to start. So keep it running in the background and npm install what it is, Bootstrap and Bootstrap icons. Icons and save. This is the Bootstrap we need for our application. And we are setting up Bootstrap here. Okay, so once Bootstrap is installed, we are not going to link to HTML page because here ours is a single page application. Single page application means application starts with only one page. And what is that page? Application start with index. Now what we need to do here is we have to go to index.js, index.js and import the following. You have to import. In index.js, we need to import this. Three files we need to import. Now, let's see here. We will add index.js here. In this index.js, here we have to import anywhere. There is no order dependency here. You can import anywhere. So I have to import three files. One is import. First, I need icons file and icons file. It is present in node modules // I can get the node modules because currently we are in SRC folder. Come out of SRC folder, node modules. In that we have Bootstrap icons. In that we have font and Bootstrap icons.css. This is one file. Another file we need to import node modules. In that Bootstrap, in that dist, in that CSS, in that bootstrap.css. These two files. One script file. Script files, actually we import bootstrap from Bootstrap. This is actually Bootstrap JavaScript file will be there. Actually, what we have to do, we have to use bootstrap.bundle.js. Bootstrap bundle.js is nothing but which contains all the bootstrap logic. And if you are using in React, that JS file contains a class called bootstrap. You have to import that class. That means what is this bootstrap? This bootstrap is module name. It is the module name. Module name is nothing but, you know that in JavaScript, you created a file bootstrap.js. When you created a file bootstrap.js or login.js, then this will be treated as module. Bootstrap is module name, login as module name. In this module, you can have functions, classes, variables, and everything. And how to import a class? You have to just mention the class name. That means this bootstrap is the class name. In this class, all bootstrap logics are present. That means it have button, it have nav bars, so it have carousels. All are present inside this class. So in order to use bootstrap related logic effects, you have to import this one. This bootstrap CSS is only styles, but functionality we will get from this location. So you have to import that bootstrap. So these three you need to set up in your project. So what you have to do, import /node modules. In that bootstrap icons, font bootstrap icons.css. This is one file you need to set up. Import node modules bootstrap dist css bootstrap.css. This is another one. We have to import bootstrap from bootstrap. This is the script you have to import. So this is going to import the complete bootstrap related library for you, so that you can start using bootstrap in your project. So these are the three files you need to set up. Right. So let's see how it is working. How it is working, we will see one example here. How the bootstrap is working in our page. I already set up here. I already imported all these. Then once I imported this in my login page, Bootstrap is already working here. How I can say that Bootstrap is already working? Because the font style, so effects, these are already Bootstrap related. Actually, Bootstrap uses a font called, Roboto. It is a very popular font used by several third-party libraries. So it uses that font. And now, once Bootstrap is ready, you can use the classes directly anywhere you want. In any component you can use. That means earlier what we have to do, suppose we designed 3 pages. In every page we need to link them. But now once you set up these in index.js, you can access from anywhere. So that means now I will go to the login JSX here. In the login JSX, we just imported the login related CSS that we yesterday written, but we haven't imported any bootstrap. No need. If you imported at index level, it is accessible everywhere. That means now what we will do, we will add some bootstrap extra effects here. How? For this text box, I will class as form control. And for this password also, I will put a class form control. And for button, I will put a class BTN and BTN warning and W100. That means now it looks like this. That means now Bootstrap is working here. Okay, we will do one more here is for this form, I will put a class called alert. So I will put as alert, alert warning. Okay. And you can see that its appearance will be like this. And I will use alert dismissible, and here I will add a button. So this button will have a class name BTN and BTN close. And you can see it will be a close button. And when I click the close button, it should close this alert. So Bootstrap functionality is also working. We have to just use data BS dismiss. Dismiss is equal to alert. Which one to dismiss? Alert. That means on the close button click, it should close. So Bootstrap is perfectly working here. That means the script is working, the styles are working, everything is functioning fine. So we added Bootstrap into this, and when I click on this close, it will close. So we don't have any button to open and all. Yesterday I showed you. Yesterday in our Netflix design previously, we created a model on sign in, click, a pop-up will come. Later we will do all such things. So, but now we enabled Bootstrap and we are starting this Bootstrap. So to remember, if any one of these are missing, then Bootstrap will not work properly. That means icons are also working or not, we will test. For this user login, I will put a class name BI and BI person fill. And that is nothing but it will get a simple design of this user. Icon is also working fine. Icon is working fine. Bootstrap classes are working fine. Bootstrap functionality is also working fine. That means all these are defined. Now this is the basic of how we can set up the Bootstrap. Once we set up the Bootstrap, I will give the example here. Same, yesterday I posted that login code. In that we are doing some modification. Login dot what? JSX. In login JSX, we are doing this modification. I will copy the same in the login JSX. This is the code. Nothing but today I extra added some Bootstrap related effects into this. For that, first we installed Bootstrap, we enabled Bootstrap, and we are starting using Bootstrap. We are using icons, we are using styles, and we are also using the functionality. So functionality we added using attribute data BS dismiss. So this is the concept how we can implement the Bootstrap. Now, once we know this, we can build same like what we done in Netflix. Previous example we can do. But before that, you need to know more concepts here. And the major concept you have to learn in React is you have to know about data binding. First, we will try to understand this data binding. So now one by one, all important concepts you need to learn here to build a good interface. In that first concept, while working with components, you should know about data binding. Actually, what is data binding? and how this data binding works. In data binding is a concept of web applications. Everywhere this concept will be there. Data binding is a process of accessing data from a memory source and binding in the UI. That means displaying to the user. That means in memory, some data is present, bring it and show it to the user and allow user to modify it. And when user modifies it, take it back and save the modification into the memory. That is data binding. So data binding is a concept of accessing data from a memory reference and displaying in the UI, identifying the changes in the UI and reverting back into the store. That means in the memory, we have to save that. How you do this in JavaScript? That means suppose you have a variable, some username is equal to John. Now, what we need to do is we have a paragraph. In this paragraph, this is the UI. We need to access the data from this and display in the paragraph. Or let's say we need to access data from there and we need to display in this text box. That means this text box have an ID as some username or txt name, something. Now, what is our data binding concept is accessing data from this variable and display in this text box. How do you do? In JavaScript, how you do? In JavaScript, to do that, we need lot of DOM methods. DOM methods. That means how we do using DOM method. Document dot get element by ID. What is it? Txt name dot value is equal to uname. That's how we do. Am I right? That means we have to access the data from a source and we need to bind to the UI. Okay. Now, if anybody modifies in the UI, how you will update back into this location? If anybody modifies in the text box, how you will update back into that memory? The changes must be updated back into the memory. So how do you do that? How do you do that? So you need events like on change. You need events like on key up. Am I right? So what you have to do? You have to write a function. In the function is some name change function. On name change, what we have to do? We have to get that uname variable. Into that, we need to store the value coming from the text box. Get element by ID. What is it? Txt name dot what value. And this name change should work when on change. Am I right? On change is equal to what it is? Name change. That means to access the data from a memory and to display in UI and to collect the changes in the UI and update back, you need lot of logic. Without this, can you do in JavaScript? Not possible. JavaScript have to depend on lot of DOM methods to bind the data. Now see how it is simple in React. Now we will see how it is simple in React, how we can access and handle this. But here so many issues also there. We will see the issues. So what is data binding? First point. So data binding is a technique of web application, is a technique of web application. So data binding allows to access data from memory source and bind to UI elements. Data from memory source and bind to UI elements. So it also allows to identify the changes, identify the change in data from UI and update back into memory source. That is vice versa. So data binding allows to access data from memory source and bind to UI elements. It also allows to identify the change in the data from UI and update back into memory source. So this mechanism is actually accessing data from memory and binding to UI. That is called one-way binding. We call that mechanism as one-way binding. One-way binding. And any modification in that and updating back, we call it as two-way binding. Two-way binding means it can bring from memory and show, and any modifications, it can update back. But React, unfortunately, it can allow only one-way binding. React uses only one-way binding. This React people will tell as an advantage, but several developers are not satisfied. That means for certain reasons it is good, for certain reasons it is not great. That means React will not support implicitly two-way binding. React supports only one-way binding. And they call this as a good feature. Why good feature? Because it will save the application from accidental updating of data. It prevents updating of data until or unless manually user updates. But when user updates, it cannot update. Again, it needs events, same like JavaScript. Then it's not great every time. But what other technologies claim, like Angular, Vue, other people claim is they say that we are two-way binding. That means the frameworks like Angular, they support two-way binding. But React will support only one-way binding. Then two-way binding, we have to manually implement. I will show that what is binding, how it works. First, what we have to learn is how to store data in memory and how to access and use it. So let's see. For this, to understand this, how data binding works in React, we will see that. What is problem in JavaScript? So JavaScript requires lot of DOM methods and events to handle data binding. JavaScript requires lot of DOM methods and events to handle data binding. So React library can manage one-way binding, by using a binding expression. So expression, using a binding expression defined in embedded block. defined in embedded block. Embedded block is written in a curly brace. Binding expression defined in embedded block. I hope in JavaScript already you learned. JavaScript is also having this embedded block. In JavaScript, we use $curly brace. When you are using backtick string representation, you have a binding expression, right? In JavaScript, you have data binding expression. So here it doesn't require DOM methods. So without DOM methods, it can simply access the data and use the data. So for example, let's see here. Suppose in our login, this title I want dynamic. That means I want the title to change regularly according to the requirement. Then this user login title, I don't want like this. I want it to regularly change. So we will do one thing. In the function, we will declare a variable. The variable name, I will say title is equal to, we will put some title, some admin login. That is the title. Now I want to display that inside this heading. Generally in JavaScript, to do that inside the heading I want. Currently heading is empty now. There is no heading. Generally in JavaScript, what we do, because it is not having any ID, you can use document query selector H3 inner HTML. We can display this title. But now accessing the data and binding to UI, it requires simply a curly brace to add. In JSX, you can just put a binding expression and just add the variable name. Variable name is what? Title. That's it. It will get the data and show. So you don't need any DOM methods much. You can easily handle that by using the concept of data binding. You can access the data and you can bind the data. So no DOM methods, nothing. It is a simple mechanism. And whenever you do the modification here, we say some customer login, then it is going to update there. Any change in the data, it is going to update there. So it's a simple technique. So syntactically how it works. So we have a variable title, some user login, some title, and we need to keep that in a heading. Then what you do, we have to just put a binding expression and their title. That's it. Suppose we have a username, some name, and we want to display in a text box. What we do, input type is equal to text. Text box will have a value property. In that value, you just put a binding expression coming from where? Your name. That's it. That means it is going to bind that into that location. You don't need any DOM methods. Get element by ID or anything here. Just you need to access the data from the source and you need to update. So that is one important. So this is the concept of one-way binding. Two-way binding is a big concept. We will learn later. First, we will understand how this one-way works. One-way means accessing data from memory and using it here, right? So here you see, I have stored the data and I'm accessing and using it. Suppose you want to display some var uname is equal to some John. And I want to display that in that username text box. Then what you need to do is for this username text box, we have a value. In the value, we put a binding expression. It will come from which variable? Uname. That's it. That means it will get that and it will show. We can set the value coming from that particular source, right? That is a simple approach, accessing data and using. It looks good when you are comparing with JavaScript, it is good. But here, so many technical things are there. First point you should know is never use variables to store data in a component. That is the first basic rule. So we should not use variables for handling data. We are not saying that variables are not allowed in a component. Component means it's a function. In a function, you can have variables, no problem. But we don't expect variables in a component to handle data. Data we should not handle with variables. Why we should not handle data in variables? What is the problem with variables? Of course, you have learned JavaScript OOP concepts. In JavaScript OOP concept, when you learned about JavaScript OOP, so we have a class, some class, and you know variables are not allowed in a class. You cannot declare a variable as a class member. Variable cannot be a class member. You know that in JavaScript. You learn? Variables are not allowed as class members. Why? Why variables are not allowed as class members? Class members, how many can be there in a JavaScript? In a JavaScript class, class members can be a property or a method or an accessor or a constructor. Only four. You cannot have variable as a class member. It's not possible. So if you have learned JavaScript, this basic rule you know. So I will show you a HTML page. Suppose we are having a class demo, and in this var x equal to 10, not allowed. It is not allowed. And you see why it is not allowed. Because only a constructor or a method or an accessor or a property, only these are allowed. That means you cannot store data in a variable. Why variables are not allowed as class members? Because you already learned in JavaScript that variables are immutable. Variables are immutable and class can have only mutable members. JavaScript class can have only mutable members. It cannot have immutable. Immutable means their structure cannot change. So that is the reason in class to store data we use properties. We don't use the variable. However, already you know that if anybody asks you a question like, can we have a variable in class? Yes, we can have a variable in class, but variable cannot be class member. What does that means is, suppose in a class we have a print method. In this print method, you can have a variable, no problem. That means in interviews, questions will be tricky. If anybody asks like, can we have a variable in class? Yes, you can have. Can we have variable as class member? No. Variable cannot be a class member, but it can be inside a class. Inside a class, now it is not a class member. It is the member of a print method. It's okay. It will work there. But it cannot be a direct member of class because it is immutable. So here the same concept is generally components, they are allowing variables to use, but we don't recommend variables to store the data. Why? Because variables are immutable. Means I will tell you some reasons. For example, I want to store a price and I want the price to set to some 45,000. After that, it should not allow to change the price. It should not allow to change the price. Once you initialize, it is fixed. It should not allow to change the price. Then how? If I declare using var or let, I can assign. You learn difference between var and let. Var and let will allow to assign. That means later if I put price is equal to some 50,000, it will allow. How to prevent it? Constant. That means what you do instead of var, you can declare by using constant and you can put it. Now, if I try to assign into price some new value, it will not take. This is invalid. Am I right? But for a user, I don't want to allow to modify, but admin should able to modify. Then how you will declare? An admin user must able to modify the price, but a user cannot modify. Admin can modify, user cannot modify. Then how you declare a variable? If you declare a variable with var or let, they are always changeable. If you declare with constant, they are always not changeable. Then now, for certain situation, it should allow to change. In another situation, it should not. Can a variable change its behavior of declaration? It cannot change the behavior of declaration. That is the reason they are not allowed in a class. Why? Because class is a template and it should allow to change the variables, means data according to situation. That is the reason class will not allow variables and class need all mutable members. In a component also same. But here you will see lot of technical things. So first basic rule, never use variables in a React component to handle the data. Then how to handle the data, how we can manage the data, we will see. So very important note, never use variables to store and handle data for a component. Never use variables to store and handle data for a component. So variables are immutable types. Immutable types. And a component requires mutable memory. A component requires mutable memory. That means the memory that can change. So the memory that can change. So in React, it doesn't mean that we don't use variables. Wherever we need immutable things, we just put variables. Sometimes we need immutable data, immutable reference. Then we just use var, let, and all these things. But the point is here, so that means never use variables to store data. It doesn't mean we are not saying that don't use var, let, const. We are saying that don't use variables. It doesn't mean that only variables are declared by using var, let, const. You know, function expressions, functions also can be stored with var, let, and const, right? In that case, the point is how you manage the data then, where to keep the data. If you know, any web development will keep its data in a state. Have you heard about that? Any web application, any web technology in the world, Java, .NET, PHP, Python, UI, any web technology maintains its data in a state. Maintains it data in a state. That means actually, so how we manage the data? That means now the question is how we manage data in a React application. So remember here, so what is the solution for this is, so state in React. You need to know about state in React. So what is a state and why you need a state? What is the concept of this state? I hope in general JavaScript also you learned. In JavaScript, what state management techniques you learned? Local storage, session storage, cookies, these comes under state management. JavaScript state management, local storage, session storage, and cookies. And why you need a state? So the first basic thing is web applications. Web applications use HTTP, HTTP as protocol, HTTP as protocol. HTTP, HTTP, yes, they are all extensions of that, right? Web applications use HTTP as protocol, and every web developer knows that HTTP is a stateless protocol. It is a stateless protocol. HTTP is a stateless protocol. That is a very basic thing. In every web development, this first basic rule you will learn. Whether it is Java, .NET, Python, PHP, any web technology you are dealing with, you know that you have to maintain a state for your application. Because web applications are stateless. Stateless means what? Stateless concept is nothing but, so we have, suppose the concept of, so we have like, yeah, so we have like page 1 and we have page 2. Now we have the server. We are having a server. Now client, generally the client requested the page 1. When client requested page 1, what server will do is server will allocate memory. It will allocate the memory for page 1. And in that it will load this page. It is allocating memory for page 1 and it will load. And now client is navigating from page 1 to page 2. That means he is moving from page 1 to page 2. So when user moves from page 1 to page 2 through any medium, through link click or through request in the URL or anywhere, now what happens is when user requests page 2, what server will do is the memory allocated for page 1, it will delete. It will delete the memory for page 1 and it will again create a new memory for page 2. Page 2 memory is created. That means the memory allocated for the page 1 is deleted, cleaned up once the page is finished. And new memory is allocated for page 2 because currently user is requesting page 2. Now in page 2, if user wants to see what he's done in page 1, it's not there, gone. That means in page 1, some data he stored and you want to use in page 2, it's not there, it's gone, deleted. That means there is no chance that you can see the data that of page 1 in page 2. There is no chance. In web development, it is not possible, especially when you are using a HTTP protocol. And to overcome this problem, every web application uses a technique called state management. Every web development uses state management as a technique. What is state management technique is, through various mediums, it will store the data of one page and makes it available to another page. That means the data of one page can be kept and it can be used in another page. That means for that, internally there is nothing. You have to manually use a technique and we call the technique as what? State management. And generally you learned in JavaScript what are the state management techniques: local storage, session storage, cookies. These are the client side state management. Actually, we have both client side, server side also state management. So client side, we use some state management techniques and we maintain the data and we use the data. If you learned general JavaScript here, I will show you the basic JavaScript first so that you can understand. This is demo page. One more page I will add as some result page or say welcome page. These are just ordinary HTML pages I am using. And this is the demo page. Now in demo page, we have input type is text. And so ID as username. And we have a button as submit. Now what we need to do is on click. So this is submit click. On submit click, what we have to do is we will write a script with a function submit click. On submit click, we will collect the username, document get element by ID. What is it? Username dot value. And this username I have to carry to the next page. I need to carry to welcome page. In welcome page, I want to show welcome that user. That means now what we need to do is in this welcome page, we need to say welcome to that user. On load, that is body load, we need to say welcome to that user. That means here we will put a welcome to that user. So that means we have a script here, a function body load. On body load, we need to collect it. Now in demo page, this username must be transported to the next page. And how you transport data from one page to another page in JavaScript, you can use query string, you can use local storage, you can use session storage, and you can use cookies. I hope you know you can use query string also. By using query string, we can pass the data and we can collect the data. And we can pass by using local storage, session storage. These are all state management techniques. That means what we do, so we will use a local storage. Local storage dot here we have set item. And what is the key? Key is uname. And what is value? Value is user name. And after that, location.href, location.href, we are redirecting to welcome.html page. That means now what happens is in the demo, and this is the demo page. Let's inspect. And in the inspect, what we do is we will go to the category of application. In application category, you can see session storage, local storage. Currently, local storage is empty. There is nothing. We entered some name and click on submit. It navigates to the welcome page and this is stored in the memory. That means in the local storage, that value is stored. Now what this welcome page can do, it can bring that value and use it here. That means how it will bring the value. Welcome page can bring the value. Document dot what? Query selector, paragraph, inner HTML. It can bring by using local storage dot get item. And what is the key? Uname is the key. Then it can get that value and use it. This is how data is transported from one page to another page. You use query strings, you use local storage, you use session storage. And almost in every React interviews, you will find practically also test given with storages. That means they will say that design a form and the data of form must be stored in a local storage. From there again, bring it and show. Don't use any database. We don't want any database. Already in JavaScript, you know your local storage, session storage. Collect the data from the form and put it in the storage and give it to the next screen. That is the approach we need to follow. So every web application depends on state management. Without state management, there is no web. There is no web. So that means data transportation is done by using this. So it is a stateless protocol. What is meant by stateless protocol? it cannot remember. It cannot remember information between requests. It cannot remember information between requests. So it requires various state management techniques. It requires various state management techniques. State management is classified into one is client side state and server side state. Server side states, your server side technologies will teach you. If you are learning Java, .NET, PHP, Python, those technologies will teach you how server side they maintain the state. Client side in JavaScript, in jQuery, Angular, React, here you will learn client side state management. Client side state management, server side state management, little different. Server side, some additional state management techniques will be there, you can manage. This is client side state management. React, any front end technology means they use client side state management. So client side state management. Client side state management includes what it have: query string, local storage, session storage, cookies. All these comes under client side state management. That means what is client side, what is server side? That means it depends on where it maintains the data. It depends on where it maintains the data. If the data is maintained in your PC, then it is client side. It is maintained on server, then it is server side. For example, you have to remember your password to log in again and again. So your password will be saved by your browser. That is client side state management. What is advantage? Every time you don't need to enter the password. Your password is saved on your browser. And server side state management is, for example, you are doing some money transaction with a credit card every time, and your card will be saved on server. Next time when you log in, that card will be displayed to you, but its other credentials are not saved. Only the number is saved. Other credentials, every time you need to enter. That means your data is temporarily maintained in what? Server side. We have server side, we have client side. So there are different types of state management techniques. Now the question here is how React will do that. So React can use all client side state management techniques. React can use all client side state management techniques. That means it can use all of them: query string, local storage, session storage, and all. But what happens is React also provides a local state for components. It also provides a local state for components so that they can manage data in virtual DOM. Because query string, local storage, session storage, cookies, these are all related to actual DOM. They are not related to virtual DOM. They are all related to actual DOM. Query string, local storage, session storage, so cookies, these all are related to the actual DOM, not related to virtual DOM. And components will work with virtual DOM. React is using virtual DOM. So React can use actual DOM, but it is not great idea. Why it is not great idea? Why you are coming to React? You are telling that virtual DOM is a main feature. If virtual DOM is a main feature, and again, why you are using actual DOM features? Virtual DOM is a good feature. Then why you are again using actual DOM features? If you are using local storage, session storage, that means you are again using actual DOM. Then it doesn't satisfy very much. You came to React to deal with virtual DOM, and again you are using actual DOM techniques. That's not great. That means you need a virtual DOM related state to manage. And for that, what React do is actually React provides use state. It provides use state hook. Hook means it is actually a function. React provides use state hook to maintain a local state for component. To maintain a local state for component. Use state hook. Actually, React have various state related hooks. We have various state related hooks, like we have use state is a hook, use context is a hook, use reducer is a hook. So you have use memo is a hook, use callback is a hook. So we have some. You are going to learn about them. Various are there. You are going to learn how to deal with them. How to deal with that. And you will also learn what is difference between them. Why you need different types of techniques. Of course, you already know in JavaScript what is difference between session storage, local storage. In almost majority of React interviews, so 30-40% questions will be on state management, right? And thus all 30-40 questions will be JavaScript state management. Because in React, it is very simple to answer a question. Because React is after all a library. There is nothing much to ask in a library. So means they have to concentrate a lot on language. And React language is JavaScript. So we have seen in MNCs also the questions on React asked what is difference between a local storage and a session storage. In React interviews, the question is what is difference between local storage and session storage? You know, in JavaScript, what is difference? Local storage is a permanent storage. Even you close the browser, data is available until you delete it. Next 10 days, 20 days, 1 year, you open, the data is still available. That is local storage. Session storage will be automatically deleted when you close the browser. When you close the browser, and it is not accessible from other tabs. It is available only in that particular tab. There are differences between them. So in React, to maintain a state, there are so many hooks. We will see what are these, how to use them in different occasions, right? We'll see. Now, what we have to do is you have to use this hook to store the data and use the data in your component. Components use this for storing the data. Let's see how they store the data. Means how to use this. So we will go to, this is all JavaScript related. Okay. Now we will delete these two, title and username. So this is not the right way. We will clean up this. That is empty currently. Okay. We will delete this. They are empty. Now how to store the data? To store the data, don't use any variables. First, you need to import here. We have to import. We have to import use state. It is a hook. It is a function. Hooks are actually functions. It is a function. Use state is a function of React library. You have to import this. Remember, React and Angular and JavaScript based technologies are not satisfied with local storage, session storage, or cookies or query strings. They need more state management. That means a professional high level web application is not enough with these state management techniques. That's the reason Angular, React, and other technology people depend on third party state management. They depend on third party state management. And one of the popular third party state management is Redux. Redux is one of the third party state management. That means Redux, a JavaScript library. It is a JavaScript library for predictable, maintainable global state management. It is a JavaScript library for any JavaScript application. It may be Java, .NET, PHP, Python, anybody using JavaScript in the front end, JavaScript based technologies in the front end, they can use this Redux. Redux is a state management. And that is the reason in majority of real-time projects, when you go for jobs, in your resume, you have to mention, I know Redux. Because without that, you are not a web developer. Because state management is the major concept, and general state management is not enough at higher level. We need more, and Redux will provide more. And it is not just Redux, there are so many others, but Redux is very popular state management for JavaScript based technologies. It is not just only for React, it is for Angular, React, and ordinary JavaScript applications also. In general JavaScript also, we can use this Redux, right? So later you will learn how to use this external state management, but initially we will use the basic state management. What is the basic state management here? How to define? You have configured use state. So now how to declare it, how to access and use it? Let's see. Generally, what is use state? Use state is a function. This function allocates a state for your component where you can store the data. That means what you have to do is you have to write use state. It is a function. In this function, you can keep whatever data you want. That means in this function, you can put any data you want. Means you can initialize any data you want. Primitive type, non-primitive type, anything. That means number, string, boolean, date, undefined, null, or array, object, anything you can define. For example, I am keeping a string. I will keep a string just like this is user login. User login. I can put a string, I can put a number, I can put anything. That means now what happens is a memory is allocated. In the memory, a value is stored by what? Username. Then how you access this memory? That means what happens is a memory is there. In the memory, this is actually component memory. This is component memory. In the component memory, a place is allocated. In this place, now a value is stored as what? User login. That value is stored. Now how to access it? Like that, there can be another memory. There can be some other name inside it. How do you access this one or this one? That means you see here, I'm using use state and here I kept John. How you access them? There are two memory allocations, in one user login, in another John. How you access them? There is no reference name for this. That means for this memory, we will put a reference name. We will put a reference name constant. And actually, this use state returns two parameters, one getter, another setter. Use state function returns two parameters, getter and setter. Getter is for reading and setter is for storing. So it requires square brace. You learned array destructuring technique. In JavaScript, you learned array destructuring technique. What is array destructuring in JavaScript? Suppose we have var values is equal to array in that A and in that B. That means now these two we want to store in two variables. Then what we do? Var x comma y is equal to values. This is destructuring technique. Now what happens? The value of A will be stored in X, the value of B will be stored in Y. That is array destructuring in JavaScript. You learned about destructuring technique. That means we need two parameters. One parameter is getter, another parameter is setter. That means any name you can give. This is, so this is I am giving as use title, and here I will give set title is equal to use state. Similarly, I need to configure another one. What is it? Constant. Another one is what? Username, and what? Set username. Like this, we need to configure. This is how we define the state. Here, lot of interview questions are there. I will tell you. That means in interviews, they ask like, why you are using a const? Why can't you use a var or let? You can use var or let, but we don't recommend. Why you don't recommend var or let? Why only const? Const means you cannot change. Na? Is it really you cannot change? No, we can change. Constants also can change. Constants are not read only. Constants can be changed. Whenever you reinitialize memory, the constant can get a new value. Constants also can change. That means, for example, see, here, I'll just put a simple one, script. Suppose I say constant uname is equal to, I'm using a prompt and say enter name. And I'm saying document dot write. So here I say hello and that uname. Okay. Now what we are doing here is we run this and it is asking name John and it says hello John. And I run again and David, it changed. So whoever says that constant is read only, that is false. Constant, if you say constant is read only, then interviewer will ask, then what is read only? Do you mean that read only and const both are same? No, in computer programming, we have constants and we have read only. Both are different. Constant is not about read only. Constant also can change. But when constant will change, again, when new memory is allocated, it can get a new value. Constants also can change. That is the reason here why we use const for declaring state. Can't we use var and let? You can use var or let, but why we use const? Because state must be initialized and later used. That means what is the nature and tradition of state? Every time when you declare a state, it is mandatory that state must be initialized. If you declare with var or let, what is problem? Without initialization, you can continue. Var let allows without initialization, but state must be initialized. State must be initialized. That is the reason, as per the tradition of a web application, state must be initialized before it starts the component. That is the reason constant indicates that initialization is compulsory. Then he will ask you another question. If you declare with const, how I can change? Is it possible to change? Yes, it is possible to change. We can change the constants whenever we reinitialize the memory. We will see that how we reinitialize the memory. That means how to store the new values we will see. Initially, what is this title? What is this set title? Title is what? Getter. This is what? Setter. So this title I will put here now. In the binding expression, we will access the title. That's it. That means it will get the title and it will display. And in this, we want to get the username. That means in that text box, we will put a value and this will come from where? Username. Username. This is not a variable now. This is a state. That means in the state, we are storing the data and we are accessing and using the data here. Don't use directly variables in React. Always you have to maintain a state. And how to deal with state is a big concept to handle, right? We will learn level by level so many things. So syntactically, first what you have to do is you have to import use state. So from React, you have to import use state from React. After that, you need to configure getter and setter is equal to use state. And in this, any value. It is either primitive, non-primitive, anything. Now, how to access this and use it? By using the getter, you can access the value and use it. Setters, we will learn later how to use setters. So why you need a state and what is the concept of state is important. So this is example. Just roughly, I will copy the same example. In that, I have done two modifications. Here we are using what state, right? In the login only I use. But now in data binding, you need to first learn how to bind different types of data. That means how to present a number, how to present a string, how to present arrays, how to present objects. That means in JavaScript to present an array, it's a lengthy thing for you. What you will do? For loops or iterators or maps, you will use those options and present. And in JavaScript and React, dealing with data is little different. How to deal with string, how to deal with number, these are all different concepts that we will see in next session, right? This is enough. You need to try this. And in next session on Monday, we will learn how to bind different types of data. That means we will discuss about numbers, strings, booleans, how to manage them. Once you know handling different types, then we can design an example. You cannot create any example until or unless first you know all these basic things, right? That we'll see in next session. Monday we will continue. Monday we will learn how to bind different types of data. Okay, right. Thank you.